Hello and welcome to the Fundamentals of Lute Playing. My name is Laudon Schuett, and today we're going to be talking about the next step in your chord journey. You're going to be playing 3 notes at the same time. Last week was all about the right hand playing 3 notes at the same time. This week is going to be the left hand. Now, I've included a little exercise, not really exercise, but sort of list of chords to work on and shapes to get used to help you get ready for the next pieces in our series. So let's get a couple things out of the way. First of all, it is obviously possible to play 3 or more note chords and have only 1 finger down. Today we are going to be focusing on those chord shapes which require 3 fingers down on the fingerboard. But for example, you may have your second finger on the second course and the second fret, which is an E, and you can simultaneously play a low C, that E, and a G. So it's a 3-note chord. And that is going to be mostly a right hand issue. What I want to talk about today are things like this, where we actually have to put down 3 notes at the same time. We might do something like this. So this F chord, or the C chord, G in the bass there. You won't see by itself very often, but you'll get a situation like, just because it's in an unusual inversion. Same thing with the F. More likely you'll see things like this. C, E, G, or D, F, A. Or even better, we could do something like. So one thing to keep in mind as these left-hand chords get more and more complicated, or putting 3 notes, 3 fingers down at the same time. And there may be some situations today where we're kind of preparing ahead to 4 notes at the same time, because it's very common to play like a 4-note chord, but we have 3 fingers down. But we'll try to keep it fairly strict here. So let's take, for example, a B flat chord. So what we're going to do is we're going to, and this will just be a 5th. So B flat, and F. Now, if you've been doing your 2 notes at the same time, you'll notice that most of the time you're still able to keep a really good position. As we add the 3rd note, keep in mind that you may need to play with that elbow a lot more. You may need to play around with different fingering possibilities. And I think this is perhaps the biggest thing that I notice when people are learning chords, is they get really comfortable with one way of doing it. So for example, they might be playing this F chord, so, and I'll split that so it stays really 3 notes being played at the same time. So we've got this, and you'll notice here I have 2, 3, and 1. Well, that's really wonderful. Let's see if I want to do something like that, or if I want to reach out to the 5th fret, I can hold that. And notice what my elbow is doing to make that happen. But I think it's also really, really helpful to play with alternate fingering possibilities. So let's look at just this little chord shape here and all the possibilities. I'm going to put a bunch more in the description on the worksheet. But for example, 2, 3, 1. Right there. Could also do 3, 4, 2. I could also do 3, 4, 1. And you might say, well, why would you want to do 3, 4, 1? Well, maybe I want to grab this note. Maybe I don't like doing it that way. Maybe this is easier that way. Everybody's hands are a little bit different, and there are always unique situations that are popping up in the music. So your job as a lute player is to not get stuck with one way of doing things. You know, if I take a chord shape like this is the B flat, F. You might think, yeah, that's the shape that makes the most sense. But there may be situations where you need to do something like that. So being able to play this chord with 2, 1, and 3, being able to play it with 3, 1, and 4, And you'll see that this requires me to change the angle of my hand. And if you've been very dutiful and you've been staying parallel and doing all of that, that's wonderful. But now we're getting to a point where there will be moments where you need to deviate from that sort of perfect hand position. And I think what I sometimes see with intermediate level players is they do a really good job in the beginning of, okay, I got this parallel hand position, my fingers are always perfectly curled, da, da, da. And then we start to do more complicated things and they try to maintain that. So they're doing things like, and they just can't make it work. Whereas if they take a moment to pop out, you'll notice that I'm no longer parallel. My elbow is raised. I've got my hand at a completely sort of no-no angle. But now I can do this. And then as soon as I'm done with that chord, I pop back in to that sort of standard position. So, two things to take away from this video. Look at the document that I'm giving to you in the description and practice different ways of playing these chord shapes. And for those of you who are music theory nerds, I'm going to put chords in there that aren't necessarily played by themselves in that way. They're going to be in second inversion, but that's just to get you physically prepared for things. So there will be chords in the sheet that are like G, C, E, and though you would never really see that chord all by itself, there would probably be a C played in the bass first, and then the tenor, alto, and soprano would be played. Just understand that they're in this worksheet as a sort of way to physically prepare, and they're not, sort of musically beautiful chords. They're just to get the hands ready. So taking shapes like this and this, or maybe doing something even like this. So I'm going to give you as many possibilities as I can come up with, and maybe you can come up with your own. So number one, learn to play the chords. Sorry. And learn to play them with different fingerings. And with each different fingering, figure out what angle your arm, your wrist, your elbow needs to be to play that chord comfortably and to make everything sound good. So you're learning to be flexible. And then the other element is that as you are sort of playing these and experimenting with them, you're staying on top of the right hand. You're making sure, just like we talked about last week with the right hand, you play 3 notes, you make sure they are all sounding. Just like that. And you can experiment, you do P, I, M. If it's something where there's a little bit of a spread like this, you could practice your P, M, A, P, I, M, or both. Doing them this way. Make sure everything is nice and clear. So you're playing these chords with different fingerings, and you're learning what position the arm, the wrist, the hand needs to be playing, and staying on top of that right hand. Because what's going to happen is, as the left hand gets more complicated, you're going to start missing things. You're going to start playing chords, and it's going to sound like this, maybe, Oh, wait, there needs to be 4 notes in there. And we need to hear all of them. And can I hear all of them with different fingerings? So I guess there's 3 things for you to do with this lesson, which is number 1, learn to play each of the chords I give you in using the different fingerings. Number 2, make sure that you're finding the correct angle of the arm, the correct angle of the elbow, and the fingers in the hand that makes the chord sound best. And then you're also making sure that the right hand is still plucking and all the voices are clear. And as a reminder, a really good way to do this, play the notes separately and then all together. And then once you get your first pieces with 3 and maybe 4 notes and things like that, then what you'll practice is leaving a good position to play to a chord and then popping back in. So you will have to do certain things in the future that take you out of perfect position, but then we always pop in. If I imagine there'll be lots of questions. Some of you may have some ideas about different chord fingerings and things like that. So feel free to make some comments in the comment section. Again, you'll find the link to that exercise sheet in the description. If you are enjoying this series and you'd like to support it, the best way you can do that is to just subscribe. I also have a Patreon in the description, which you can support me in that way if you would like. Otherwise, happy luting, happy practicing. Next week, I will be introducing your first piece that uses 3 notes at the same time. And then I believe after that, we're going to start talking about some more nuancy things like bars. I'll make sure the first piece doesn't have any bars, but we'll start talking about, well, how do we play beautiful bars? That'll be a fun video, and probably a little bit longer than some of these recent ones. Have a wonderful week. Happy practicing. Bye-bye.